Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Right on, writers, and welcome first-time viewers to the Books by Adrian author platform. This is Livestream Sunday, our flagship show. We are deep into Season 5. Thank you all so very much for being here, for being so supportive of the show thus far. It's been a blast of a season. We've had some great guests. The good times keep on rolling today. We have a great show planned for you. Let's go ahead and get on with it. We're welcoming everybody to the show. If this is your first time with us, my name is Adrian Santiago. I am an author and YouTube content creator on here. And my debut novel, Mythic, Shadow of the Spark, will be releasing early 2023. Crossing my fingers for January, February. We'll see. If you would like to know when the book is coming, get the cover reveal before anybody else, get on the beta reader list, any of that stuff, then you need to sign up for my newsletter. The website is on the screen right now. It is clickable in the description down below. And if you sign up for that newsletter, you're going to find out about all the cool stuff before anybody else finds out about all the cool stuff. And that's what newsletters are all about, right? Today's guest is the prolific Melinda Kucsera. I am so excited to talk to her today. It's going to be a great show. If you have any questions for Ms. Kucsera, please label them with a giant Q followed by a colon. This will let me know that this is a question that you want to be asked during the live chat Q&A. And I will be saving all of those questions throughout the show and asking them during that segment of the show towards the end. So make sure that you label them appropriately. If we get more than 10 questions, I'll even do a little raffle thing to see who gets to ask their question first. It's fun. It's good times. Speaking of which, hello to the chat. Everybody who's here in there. I think it might just be Richard right now, but the stragglers will be in little by little. Welcome, everybody. Enjoy the show. I'm happy to see you here. Now, let's talk about this week in AuthorTube. All right, I don't know what's going on with that. I'm supposed to have really good Wi-Fi right now, but apparently I don't. It's lagging. Anyway, this week in AuthorTube, we got a couple things going on. I'm going to do a little shifty shift to this guy right here. First up, we have the lovely Shannon. We all know her as SD Houston. She recently put up a video all about her August 2022 income report as far as her book sales and all that kind of good stuff. I am in awe of her transparency with everything to do with her career and what she does as an author, as a self-published author. So if you want to know the truth, the truth about self-publishing, go follow Shannon over at SD Houston and find out all about how much money an author really makes. Next up, the triumphant return of Colin Clark. We have missed him so very, very dearly, and I am so glad to have him back. He did a Preptober stream with Adam Stevenson, who I'm also very happy to see back, looking very dapper over there. Nice fresh haircut and everything. Nice. So go check them out, as I assume they'll be doing a lot more in the coming weeks. Lastly, a return from Black Girl Writing. I singled this one out because it's a video all about how she's been writing by hand and what that has done to her story. The changes that it has brought to her writing process, the changes that it has brought to her plot in general. And this is actually something that I've been, kind of toying with lately as I decided recently that I will be drafting the next book with the Neil Gaiman writing routine, which involves a lot of writing by hand. So I'm very, very curious to see what that's going to do for my writing. And I recommend that you guys experiment with that as well. See if you get some good results and see what's going on there. So Black Girl Writing is rocking it over there. Make sure you go over, subscribe to her channel as well. All of these channels that I have mentioned today, all three of them, are linked already down in the description down below. So if you want to go, watch the show, don't leave me yet. But, check it out later. All right, you guys. I have, let's see, Miss Melinda Kucsera coming up next. The very last thing that I want to cover with you guys before I bring her out is the fact that we were supposed to have Tuber Book Club this Tuesday. It has been postponed to next Tuesday. There's a scheduling thing with my wife's work and me having to be here with the kids and all that kind of stuff. So doing this, switching it to the following week, will put us on alternating weeks where she's working one Tuesday and I'm doing the show the following Tuesday. So hopefully we won't have any more conflicts with scheduling from here on out. But I decided to remind you guys what we're going to be doing next Tuesday, the 25th. The 25th. I just double checked. All right, let's check it out. All right, y'all. That is for Tuber Book Club, which is the book club exclusively on this channel where we read, review, and discuss books written exclusively by author tubers. There is always been, so far, for everyone that we've chosen, an author interview afterwards. So stick around for that too. All right, y'all. You have a week and some change to read the first half of the book. Read it and join us on the 25th to talk about it. We've wasted enough time. Let's get right down to brass tacks. We're bringing out Miss Melinda Kucsera.
Hello.
All right. I don't know what's going on with them, but hi, how are you?
Oh, for a second there, I was like, why is his mouth moving and I don't hear anything?
No, it's because the thing was playing, but then nothing was happening. It's it's internet. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to Books by Adrian and to Livestream Sunday. We're so happy to have you here, Miss Kucsera. How are you?
I'm glad to be here. This is exciting.
We're happy to have you. I'm going to give you the floor for a quick minute here, just so you can let people know who you are, where you're from, and what you might currently be working on.
Oh, wow. Hi, I'm Melinda. I'm from New York, and I write the Cursebreaker series, the His Angelic Keeper series, the Robin of Larkspur series, and a couple others. I'm currently working on book 3 of the Robin of Larkspur series, When the Characters Let Me. Right now, they're fighting me. They're trying to do things that break the lore, and we're having a little bit of a battle over this.
We're going to be talking about that a little later, how characters seem to be like real people to you. I really like that. We're going to get to that. We're going to let's take a brief second to say hello to everybody in the chat because they are here and apparently happy to be so. Hello, Richard, always first through the door and always appreciated. Let's see who else is here. Miss Shannon made it. Hello. Thank you for making friends with the like button. Everybody else, do as Shannon does. Click the like button and subscribe if you have not done so already. Penelope, hello. Welcome. Welcome. Yes, there is a poll in the chat for anybody interested. Adam, dapper as always. Welcome. It was good to see you on Colin Clark's channel this week. All right, y'all. Thank you for being here. Let's go ahead and get into it with Miss Kucsera here. First up, let's get a little background on you. You said you're from New York.
Mhm.
When did you start writing?
This is one of those things that's complicated. It's hard to answer because, when do you start writing? Does that mean when I physically started actually writing it down, or when I started daydreaming and figuring out the plots, the characters, inventing the world?
Yeah, it's a good question because that counts as writing technically. You know what I mean? Like as writers, like brainstorming this stuff is half of it, right?
Yeah, then technically I was writing when I was really, really little because
Mm.
these books that the Cursebreaker series itself started as, when we're kids, we play those imagination games. It started in that. I invented the world, some of the rules, and then it became stories that I told my younger siblings and then the kids that I babysat. And it just sort of eventually somebody was like, hey, you should write this down. And
Yeah.
oh, okay, maybe I'll do that.
So at what point did it become a writing it down to publish it kind of deal?
I was not writing it down to publish it. I liked writing it, just the whole creating and inventing it. It wasn't until my sister passed away that I actually started writing it to publish it.
My
Her
condolences.
last request was that I actually publish the stories that I told her all her life about this world. It had become so real to her. So that's when I started doing that. She passed away in 2014 and Cursebreaker Enchanted came out in 2016. So
Well, it's very sad that she passed away. My condolences, but that's a beautiful story. I like that it turned out that way. You know, that she inspired you to actually put these out, and
I
that
wish
it's a little memorial to her.
it is. I wish you'd gotten a chance to read them. They're much better now than when I was telling them when we were kids. The story would be changing because I'd be making it up
Sure.
on the fly, and it wasn't like a fully fleshed out thing. Yeah.
So, are you a full-time author now? Do you still have a day job? Like, what's that like?
I still have a day job. I am self-published, and yeah, I don't make enough to be full-time. Probably because I like certain parts of being a self-published author more than others, and the parts that I like, they do generate income, but there's other parts that you're supposed to do, like advertising and things, and I don't like that. So to sell enough books to be full-time and not work full-time for somebody else, like I'd have to actually do the parts that I don't like.
Yeah.
So I haven't gotten to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna actually make a serious go of this, and I don't know, maybe at some point in the next couple of years I will. I don't know. I'm just riding it.
You say that you don't enjoy the marketing part of it, but I think you're actually pretty good at it. At least by your Instagram and your TikTok, you're kind of killing it out there. But we're going to get to that a little later. Since you don't like the marketing so much, let me put you on the spot. Go ahead and pitch the Cursebreaker series to us.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
This is a trick question. No, I'm kidding. I can't answer this one. So the Cursebreaker series is about this guy, Sarn. He is a Cursebreaker, and he has tons of magic, and it's so hard to talk about this. It's an ongoing story, and in the beginning half, he's a reluctant hero. He doesn't want to have magic. He's convinced that normal people don't have magic because he's never run into anybody else who had it. So the first 6 books, he's not happy having magic, and then at the end of the 6th book, like, so much happens and he's able to save so many people and do so much good that he decides, well, maybe magic is not a bad thing. Maybe it's good that I'm a mage. And the next arc, hopefully he's going to learn some magic and stick with this mindset of magic is good. Will hopefully stick. I'm hoping that will stick around. There's a lot of things that he needs to do with it. The core of the series is built around, we've got the chosen one trope, which is big in fantasy. But what if the chosen one didn't know they were chosen? And what if you couldn't tell the chosen one that they were chosen to do this specific thing, because then they could never do it? Because in this world, a curse is a lie. You've been bound to a lie. If you don't know about the curse, then you don't know about the lie that you've been bound to. And there's the possibility that since you don't know that this lie is, that somebody tried to make this lie your truth, you don't know about it. So you could get around it theoretically. And they've had other curse breakers in the past who they made the mistake of telling them, and it became like a self-fulfilling prophecy, the curse, and they never could break it. So this time around, they're not telling one. So he's wandering around. He has no idea that he needs to break the curse, find the crown, and return. Well, they think it's a king, but like, if you think about history, it's written by the victors. And what if it's not actually a king they need to bring back, but a queen? And so it's sort of that sort of thing. I sort of play around with a lot of that. There's like a lot, but it's a big series. Well, there's only
it's a very big series. When I got to your Amazon, I started scrolling, and then I was scrolling, and then I was like, I'm still scrolling. Like, look at all these books. Yeah, for sure.
Well, readers love it, so I can keep doing it.
It sounds fantastic. That's a really great premise for it. You know, I like that a lot. The idea of the chosen one not knowing. Because you're right. Every single like chosen one fantasy story, somebody tells them, "Hey, man, you're the chosen one, and you got to go do a thing." And it's like, what if you had no idea? Like, that's
what if you had to stumble upon it?
I dig it. Oh, we got some latecomers. Hello, Lauren. Welcome. This for real. This book sounds so interesting.
Well, the first book is free, so you can try it out. And so there's like we made the bar of entry very low.
If it's free, it's for me. That's my motto.
Yeah, the first book is free. After that, you kind of have to pay.
Of course, fair enough.
But because that helps me pay for the next book and the next book in the series.
So, how many books are in the series so far, and how often do you release a new one?
So the core Cursebreaker series, there's 9 books. There's also a bunch of prequels. There's his twin sister has a series, and she's back and forth in and out of his later books, and he is in and out of her books. So right now I have 20 books, and Sarn is in basically all of them.
20 books.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm working on I think it's 21, or maybe it is book 20. I don't count them anymore.
And you said that was since 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So in the last 6 years, you've just been killing it, putting out 3 books a year? Where's my math?
No, I put out between 4 and 6 books per year. I started publishing the Cursebreaker series at the end of 2016. So I think I put it out in like November or December. So like most of 2016, I didn't have any books. And then I put out the original version of Cursebreaker Enchanted. And then I just kind of went from there.
Well, that's just phenomenal. I want to remind everybody in the chat, please label your questions with a Q. Let's get those questions started in there, because I know that you guys have some. I can see your wheels turning. I can smell your brains burning. All right. Well, that's crazy impressive. Now the first thing that I really wondered about was this idea of going back and expanding on a book that was already out. Tell us about the M.E.V, the more epic version. And what that's all about.
That's the current final version. I did go back in 2020 and revise that one, and now the characters are hoping that that's the final edition. And they wrote a whole note in the front. I'm not kidding. It says, if you go get Cursebreaker Enchanted right now, there's a note from the characters in the beginning, and it explains the evolution of the book. It's a very brief note, and it's at the end the characters make like a plea that let this be the last version. Move on. We want new books. We don't need to keep redoing this one. So Cursebreaker Enchanted it's my favorite book. So it's, when it's hard, like my sister's birthday is in September. So when September rolls around each year, I get very sad. I start thinking about her, and as the years pile on, it gets harder and harder to remember certain things about her. So I whenever I get sad, I turn to this and I start rereading it as my comfort read, and then I just start tinkering with it. So the original version that first came out in 2016, I'd never written a book before, so it had some it has some pacing issues. I got lucky that even with a horrible homemade cover, enough people and the blurb that I wrote, that like I'd never written a book blurb before, but enough people decided to give it a shot and try it, and I got a lot of reviews, and a lot of people really loved it. And they did cite some pacing issues. So I went back and I was like, you know what? I'm going to fix this because I love it and other people do too. And I want it to be the best it can be. So I went back and did it. And my newsletter subscribers at the time, they were all very supportive of this. So I did it. I put out a new version. I think it was in 2017 was when the more epic version first came out. And it still had a horrible homemade cover because I still didn't have the money to buy a pro cover, and that wasn't the book's fault. Cursebreaker Enchanted was doing a heroic effort to make enough money to get nice, pretty covers, but I had been laid off in, I think it was 2007 or 2008, and it took me 2 years and over 100 interviews to finally get another day job. And I'd gone through every penny that I had. All my credit cards were maxed out at that point when I finally got another job, and it took I've almost paid off the debt from that this year, and so that's a lot. So the original books I was not able to use the money from them to pay for the next book. I was using them to buy groceries. It was to that point where I could not afford to buy groceries if the books didn't make enough. So that was a difficult place to be, and I'm not in that place anymore. And I'm deeply grateful to the early super fans who helped me get past that bump in the road, I guess that is. Yeah. But it's a difficult place to be in. So, sure. Yeah, so I was not able to, when the new version the more epic version first came out, to buy a pretty cover or pay for any sort of advertising or anything. And so I had to lean heavily on my newsletter and swaps with other authors in their newsletter and to try and get the word out about it. And there was some initial backlash. Some of the fans really loved the original version. They didn't understand why I did this version. Yeah. And eventually that faded away as they did buy it and read it. I fixed a lot of the pacing problems. I was not able to completely fix the pacing problems until 2020 when I put out the final edition. Which we hope is the final edition. And it was when I reread it in 2020 during the pandemic that I realized that Cursebreaker Enchanted is actually 2 books. It doesn't have a saggy middle. It's actually 2 books. There's a complete climax, complete end, and then we start the next thing. And when I divided it, and I just divided it into parts and put that explanatory note, the pacing problems were completely gone because it had never been 1 book to begin with. It always had 2 climaxes.
That's where I was going next. I was going to ask you about exactly that, because that's another thing that just captured my imagination. This idea that like you have this book and you were struggling with the pacing, and all of a sudden you realize, oh, it's 2 books in one. Like I can still leave it as 1 book, but chop it down the middle. This is the beginning, middle to end, all in 1 book.
Well, it's not really in the middle. The first book is actually like 60-something thousand words, and the second book in there is over 80,000 words. So it's not so much chopping in the middle. It was just when I was reading it, I was like, wait, this is a whole like I did the whole save the cat thing, and there was a whole, I was trying to diagram. And I was like, wait a minute,
the cat's been saved.
Yeah. The denouement, like, wait, there's all this other plot though. And then I was reading through it, and I'm like, and here we have your act 1. Oh boy, it's 2 books. Okay, boy, do I feel dumb. And it always had been like that, and I didn't realize it.
That's it's so interesting to me that you go back almost every year around September and read it again. I'm writing what I claim to be an epic. It's a big book. It's 166,000 words right now by my count. There you go.
165, I think.
Epic. Love it. So, I'm in the editing phase, and I find that I've read this book through probably 19 times at this point, and I'm going to probably read it through a couple more times before it comes out. I can't imagine going back
after. You will after, because it's your first book and it is the book that sells the series. So even after you publish it, like that's not its final fixed form. You're not sticking in a coffin and throwing the dirt on top.
Right.
Going back anytime the series isn't selling as well, you'll be like, okay, what do I do? What are you not doing? What do I gotta fix in you? So just be prepared that that is going to be the book that you go back to over and over again, especially as you write
Fantastic.
later books in it, because you left so many things in that first one that you may not even realize. And you go back and like, oh, I had this whole thing in here that I totally forgot about. I'm going to use this in book 5 or book 6 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Something to look forward to.
It's yeah.
Yeah.
Something to look forward to. Hopefully you'll enjoy rereading it and it won't be a
If I wrote it well, we'll see.
If not, you'll rewrite it, you'll put out a new
I'll
version.
make it better.
Yeah.
So let's talk about you on TikTok, because you have some promotional animations that you put up on there, and I'm curious if you make them yourself, if you have somebody who's helping you do them, because they're pretty good. Like, as far as ads go, like I really enjoy them. What's the story behind these little like clips and animations that you're putting up on your TikTok?
Wait, which ones?
Well, like for the
all different ones.
Yeah,
and all different ways. So I'm not sure like which one you're.
Well, I singled out the ones that are more like seemingly promotional, like for selling the book, and then there's ones that are kind of like readings, like where you're actually like reading little segments out of the books and stuff. I saw both on there, so I don't know, like who's like. You have some. You know what? Let me pull it up and share the screen. How about I do that
myself?
Well, there you go. That answers
I don't
that
have
question.
a personal assistant or anything. I have fictional characters. They're not very reliable. They don't. They claim that they help with marketing, but I don't.
But
where are they?
don't.
They're not here. So.
Yeah. Oh man. And then I also noticed on your TikTok you do the reviews for the Lord of the Rings series that was out, Rings of Power. It just wrapped up. I'm behind. I've only seen like 3 episodes so far.
Don't watch my TikToks then.
Well,
I did a little
first
wrap up on YouTube and also on my podcast about it.
I saw that.
Don't listen to any of that until you've watched it.
I'm very good about remaining spoiler free. Don't worry about me. As far as yourself, how did you enjoy the series? Like, how did it pan out for you in general?
I like some things about it. I was really disappointed about other things, and I think they should change the intro and just be, instead of based on, it should say inspired by, because they did some massively lore breaking things. They did some things in there that like Tolkien never would have written that are not in there. There's no way you could extrapolate that from some of the things that he's written. So I think, I like some things, and some parts of it I have issues with.
Sure. Well, from what I understand, they only had the rights to the appendices from the Lord of the Rings. They didn't get the right to the Silmarillion, so they had to change everything from the Silmarillion into something else. And I'm like,
yeah, but they also changed a lot of stuff that they had the rights to, and that's what makes me angry, because in the appendices it's only a couple thousand words. Tolkien had sort of he literally outlined the Second Age, and there's a lot of gaps and things that they could easily have filled in with new stuff. And instead of taking like the few things they had the rights to, they changed some of that stuff, and that I had a problem with, because it's not like you have this massive tome like with the Lord of the Rings trilogy and you have to figure out what to keep, what to cut. It's only a couple thousand word outline. Like the last episode had a lot of things that really angered me. There's some things that the whole show is about the Rings of Power, and it's very brief what they show you of the actual making, and they changed the whole premise of it. Like, they basically invalidated the movies that follow, because the whole point of the Rings of Power is that Sauron seduced Celebrimbor and they made the rings, and he corrupted the rings for the dwarves and the rings for the kings of men. Then they figured this out. Anatar leaves, which Anatar was the fair form that Sauron, who's a shapeshifter, had taken when he came to the elves. And he goes off and makes his one ring. They go, oh crap, what did we just do? And they make the elven rings without him. So the big thing that runs through the Lord of the Rings, which it's weird that they would take this out, even though they added it in like The Hobbit, which it wasn't there. Like, they made the Arkenstone an object of greed, and they gave you that dragon sickness to greed. That was never in Tolkien, but there is a lot of greed in the First Age and also in the Second Age. And why did the elves make the rings? It's not because they were fading. They weren't fading. They're immortal. The lands around them they wanted to preserve. They're also greedy, and that was completely taken out of there, because the whole point of the Lord of the Rings is they are undoing thousands of years of the elves' greed, which led to basically the doom of everyone.
Yeah, the
And
Lord of
that's
the
been
Rings is kind
removed.
of post-apocalyptic world where,
Yeah.
like, the Second Age was it was the prime, so to speak.
Hmm.
Is when everything was hopping. Very interesting. I'm gonna look forward to finishing the series and seeing how I feel about all that.
Yeah, I'm curious what you take away from that. But
Uh,
that's the thing that kind of those are some things that I was very disappointed with the series. Like you had one
Makes
job.
sense.
It's the title of this series. You had one job and you messed it up.
You had one job.
I'm I'm not sure what they're doing in season 2, but yeah.
Now you have a YouTube channel.
Yes.
And on that YouTube channel, I found some AI narrated audiobooks as
Yes.
for Cursebreaker Enchanted here. Tell us a little bit about that, like putting it up in chunks and getting the AI to do this thing for you. Sounds pretty good. I listened to the first one. It's great.
Yeah, no, it's so I'm not in Kindle Unlimited, so that means my books are distributed widely. So I use Google Play as one of the distributors, and they have an option if your ebook is published on Google Play that you can then turn that ebook into an auto narrated audiobook. That's what they call an AI narrated audiobook. I just switched it to AI because auto narrated sort of sounds bizarre, like the book is talking to you, like the book is narrating itself, which is not really possible. So but everybody kind of understands an AI and equates that with like a synthetic voice or a computer, so okay, this is a little bit better. And so that's what I did. And one of the things that I like about this is that producing an audiobook is very expensive. With good reason. It takes a lot of time, there's a lot of engineering involved, and you need the talent. Oh, I see a question.
Oh, no, not,
Oh,
not a
we
question.
just
Just sometimes I just throw stuff on the screen. Don't worry about that. Just keep talking.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if I should answer that because yes, your book has to be. You cannot
Yeah,
be in Kindle Unlimited if you distribute to Google Play. You have to be. You don't have to be as wide as my books are, but you do. You cannot be in Kindle Unlimited and have your books on Google Play, and you have to have your ebook published on Google Play in order to make the AI narrated audiobook. But once you have your ebooks in there, it's just a click of a button and you pick your voice, and then you just can go and listen to it, and you can fix any pronunciations, which is kind of neat because it's going to mess up I think they're called homographs or whatever
homonyms,
the one is where
homophones,
the words
homographs.
look the same but sound different. I
That's
always get the
look the same but sound different. That's homograph.
homograph. So I had
I
it right the
believe so.
first time. Okay.
Yeah, I
It
believe so.
does mix up homographs, but it's easy to fix.
Nice.
And that's what I did. And I did it for almost all my books. I have one left that I need to do. So it's on my list.
Shannon suggested homophones, but homophones sound the same, right?
Yeah,
They sound the same, but they're
words that
spelled
look the
different.
same but are pronounced differently, like live and live. They're spelled exactly the same, but they're pronounced differently, and the AI usually gets that wrong.
That
Or
makes sense.
bow, as in bow and arrow, and bow. They're spelled the same, but pronounced differently.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. Next up, I wanted to talk about treating your characters like real people. On your YouTube in particular, whenever you're discussing your characters, you talk about them like they're real people, like they're living and talking to you in your head. Tell us a little bit about that, your relationship with these fictional characters that live inside your head.
That started long before YouTube. When I first started, they told, as an indie author, the first thing they tell you is you need a newsletter. And I was like, okay, I'll build a newsletter. What do I put in the newsletter? I was like, well, all I do is write books and go to an office 5 days a week. Like I don't do anything else. I'm very boring. So you need to put something in the newsletter that's sort of interesting. And I was like, well, I'm not very interesting, but my characters are. So and they tell you when you're creating a newsletter, create a persona. So I was like, well, I have personas. They're my characters. So I'll just use one of those. So my newsletter has been managed by fictional characters since 2017. So I just sort of continued that along. It's a
I
little
like
harder
it.
on YouTube because I'm not a voice actor, so I can't do their voices. So I'm in this awkward place where I have to speak as myself, but I'd rather them be talking to people. So it's yeah, it's a work in progress.
Oh, you're doing a great job. We all make do with what we've got, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your non-Cursebreaker books. You already told us you have at least 2 other series going on, right? So tell us a little bit about those 2. You've already pitched Cursebreaker to us. What can we expect in the other 2 series?
So His Angelic Keeper series is about Sarn's sister. She passed away when they were children. She is dead, and she manages to come back first as a ghost, and she tries to help him, but he can't hear her, he can't see her. Her books are they're more of a humorous take on my epic fantasy world. I get to poke fun at some of the things that I have to be very serious about in the Cursebreaker books because she's dead. There's also angels and dragons and all kinds of shenanigans. As it was never meant to be a series. She was meant to be just a fun story, and she had other ideas about that though, so that didn't happen. So now it's an ongoing series that I didn't plan on, but it's a lot of fun, and she's in and out of his books, and she's evolved to the point where she can actually communicate with them. They can see her, they can hear her, she can get into mischief with them. Not that Storm gets into mischief, she does.
Of course not.
Yeah, no, he's pretty good, but it's the other characters who get him into trouble. And so there's 4 books in her series. I'm working on the 5th book, and yeah, so she's dead. At first, she doesn't know it. She can't remember anything. She's stuck in this wacky afterlife with memory-eating elephants and memory-eating fog, and she has no idea who's chasing her and what's going on. And they're trying to keep her from remembering and going and finding the exit from the afterlife back to the mortal world to go help her brother, because she destabilizes things when she does that, but she doesn't know that. So it's a hilarious romp through the afterlife.
I like that. I like that idea. The idea of poking fun at the very serious things in the other series through this one. That sounds awesome. That sounds like fun. And then what about the 3rd one? It sounds like Robin of Locksley, but it's not.
Robin of Larkspur, and it is meant to have some Robin Hood. We haven't gotten to that yet. She's very contrary. So her books take place a couple of years before the Cursebreaker series, and she runs into Sarn. Her daughter gets kidnapped. She needs a mage. She runs into Sarn. Okay, you're coming with me. We're going to go save my kids. And there's a whole lot of drama with that. And then after that, she'll go off and do her own thing. And maybe I hope we'll get to the Robin Hood stuff. That was the whole point of the series, but I don't know if she's going to.
She has her own ideas.
She has her own ideas. I don't know if we're ever going to get to that. It's on my goals. It's on my list, but she's never met an outline she couldn't shred. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and assume that you're mostly a pantser with this stuff. Is that the case? I outline, but
you outline, and your characters still run off with it.
Oh yeah. The more I outline, the more they go off script, and the more we end up pantsing things. I'm not entirely sure where I'm going wrong there, because that's not supposed to happen, but that's been the case. But
it is kind of the opposite. Yeah,
it is, but it always ends up their version is better than what I had planned, so I can't argue. It just
always go with that.
It just means that they get into these situations, and it took me a year to get them out of one of them, because I was like, I'm not going to break the lore because you decided to not follow the path that I had set out for you. So thankfully the answer was in book 2, and when I was rewriting Cursebreaker Enchanted, and then I reread Cursebreaker Darkness, I was like, oh hey, the answer is right here. We don't have to break the lore. We had the answer all along. We had this item that we totally forgot about.
It's lovely when that works out.
Yeah.
What have you learned about marketing these books? What's the harsh truths that you've learned?
That romance is very easy to market, and if you're not writing romance, which I'm not writing, it's harder to market. There's the tropes that you're writing about are less known. It's you see the marketing people are like, oh, I write dark romance enemies to lovers, and you immediately know what that is. I tell you, well, I write the Chosen One epic fantasy adventure, and you're like, I don't know what that is.
That could be anything,
right? We don't have as many tropes to throw out there that are as recognizable. I can also say, hey, I've got the reluctant hero, and some people know what that is. Some people are like, I still don't know what you're talking about. You're speaking Greek to me.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's one of the reasons why I put a romance subplot in my novel, because it's I've got a whole bunch of genre stuff going on, but I got to be able to sell this to the ladies as well. So we got to get a little romance in there, so I can at least claim that it's a romance novel, even though it's not really. Now, what about publishing wise? Actually putting the books out there. What is like the biggest challenge that keeps coming up or has come up, and you've learned a valuable lesson from that going forward?
Covers. Covers
Covers.
are it's covers are they can be covers is definitely the challenge because cover trends change, and then you have to figure out like, well, do you recover a long series to meet this trend? Like that's kind of where I keep running into something because I write a long series. It's like, well, do we keep redoing the cover? Like we've had this cover on Cursebreaker Enchanted now since 2020. Like, does it need another cover? I love that cover, but
Pretty good one.
yeah, I mean, this it was expensive too. I did finally get around to some pro covers, but then it's like, and especially now that there's AI artwork, it's like you have to look at like what is the legal risk of using AI art? It's cheaper, but are you then taking a legal risk in like what if they decide that AI is actually infringing upon the art that it is imitating? I don't know. There's no legal precedence yet on any of this, so it's like you don't want to use AI art on your cover because you don't know what's going to happen with that. You don't want to open yourself up to a lawsuit. And at the same time, like a pro cover can be very expensive. So, do you make your cover yourself? Which I argue that if you have some skills, you can do. I know authors who make their own covers as long as you know what the genre tropes are and you have some skill at putting that together, either with stock photography or with any sort of digital artwork that you're able to produce on your own. Like I use Daz. Like this cover is part Daz, which I did, which is the base character, and partly painted, where I paid someone to do that, and that brought some of the pricing down. But there are later books in the series that, like this one, where I didn't pay anyone to do this at all. I did this on my own using Daz. So I mean, it's you have to make that decision. Like, well, where do you draw the line? Do you just buy the really expensive cover for the first book because that's what sells the series? But how far down the line do you have to keep continuing to pay? Because the price for book covers has jumped dramatically as this AI thing has been rising. I've been seeing especially even the pre-mades like jumping, going. But we used to be able to get like in 2020 a pre-made for like $120, and now if you can get something for under 200, it's amazing. And even the ones that are in the 200 and something range, they're not all. If you're writing like certain romance genres, like they're not going to cut it because of the level that people are used to. That's the other thing, is like also certain genres don't have as expensive cover trends. Fantasy is unfortunately in the higher end because so much of it is digitally created, but there are tools you could get. Daz, there are tools, so you could try to get closer to it, or you could find an artist like, hey, look, I'll do some stuff in Daz, could you help me paint it? And if you can lessen the amount of work that they're doing, because some artists, especially with this AI coming up, like some artists are like really looking for work. Some of them are not. Some of them are not hurting at all. They charge $700 for a book cover, and there are a line of people waiting to pay that. So, because there's something AI art can't really do yet. So,
I just entered the whole like trying to find a cover artist part of the whole thing, and the latest quote that I got from the fourth artist that I have approached is $750.
Yeah,
$750 for the cover.
Full illustration.
Yeah, full illustration. I want something original, something like I don't want to use pre-made. I definitely want to go for, because I'm trying to make like this big premiere kind of deal. I want to make a big splash. So yeah, 750 is the quote that I have right now, and it's probably the one that I'm going to end up going with. But I was even messing around with some AI art last night just to see like if I could get close to what I wanted and see if I can do it myself and have it be cheaper. But like you said, it gets a little tricky, and I always want to support an artist more than anything else. You know what I mean? Like I always feel like if you can, then you should. But that's me. Now, I find myself admiring your headset. Are you a gamer?
No, I not a gamer at all. My headset for broke and I needed a headset, and I went on Amazon, and like it was like I just purchased the first thing that came up that said it could get to me the fastest because I needed
Gotcha.
something.
It's a nice looking headset. Got
Thank
lights on it.
you.
It looks very nice.
I didn't realize there were lights on it until like I came and I was like, what are all these lights? Oh well, whatever. It works great.
Now, how have your writing routines evolved from the first book in the series to now? Do you still write the same way? Have you found better ways to meet your writing goals? What's that like these days?
I would say no. My writing hasn't the way that I write books hasn't evolved, and I'm trying to evolve it. I'm still as scattershot as I'm one of those people that you'll talk to me like, oh, how's the writing going? "Oh, I haven't written anything, and I'll be telling you this for weeks, and then you're like, oh, how's it going? Oh, it's finished. And you're like, when, how? Like, I have a
I
friend
just
like
had a really
that.
good night. I had one great night, wrote it all out.
It's like I'll be like not writing it, or like sometimes I don't feel like I'm writing it because like I have an app on my phone that reads it to me, and I'll just make little edits, and sometimes I'll be doing that and like I've added 1,000 words, but it doesn't occur to me that I did that. I didn't notice. And so the words start to add up. But there will also be days where because I work full time, that I will just not have anything written at all.
Same here. I work full time, so I run into the same issue. That's a really good little trick you got there, though. An app that reads it to you, and then you can make little changes as you go. What app do you use?
I'm using @Voice. It's a free app on Android. I think it's also on Apple now. There's a bunch of different apps you can get that'll read back to you a Word document, or however you write your stories. And what I also like about writing on the phone is like it's reading it back to you, and you can just hit like the dictate button, and you can be like, and you can actually just speak what it is that you want to be there instead, which I like because I have Google Docs on my phone, and so I will have the @Voice app playing the document to me, and I'll pause it and I will go to the Google Docs documents I've also got open that I was looking at while it's reading to me, and I will just dictate some other things and have that added in. And that does definitely like help you to write things. It's much easier to dictate a conversation than to type it out.
All right, I think we're back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you were frozen for a moment.
Yes, I was. The the ever reliable Wi-Fi gods have decided to throw a lightning bolt at me or something. It's clear skies outside. There's no excuse for this. I don't get it. I'm sorry. I was able to hear you though. I heard everything you said.
That's fine.
Now, okay. I want to remind everybody: like, comment, subscribe. We're actually going to kick it with the chat room now. Let's do that. All right, before I pull up the questions, let's throw up a couple of these comments that Shannon was throwing at us. I wouldn't suggest you marketing it to romance. Oh, she's talking about my book because it's not actually a romance.
Same thing
based on what she was saying. Yeah, well, that's why I always specifically say that it's a subplot. It's a romance subplot. Yeah, I don't want anybody to think that it's a romance novel.
I'd be very clear about that because people who are looking for romance are looking for the whole book.
Yeah, the whole shebang. Yeah,
with the point of the story to be the romance, not other things. So
Absolutely.
I would be careful about that.
Absolutely.
And people who like more action-based stories tend to not want romantic subplots. I'm of that group, so I'm of the group, and I'm in all the groups where they're like, oh, don't get this. There's a romantic subplot. I'm like, oh, okay, I won't read that then.
I'm gonna make them like it. They're gonna like it. They're gonna read it. They're gonna like it. All right. Let's get to the questions. First up, we have Adam, who asks, "What cocktails do you like?" He's a big old-fashioned fan. I don't know what this has to do with writing, but there you go. Any cocktails?
I don't drink.
I'm not a big cocktail guy either. I have a whiskey every now and then, but I don't know about cocktails. Thanks, Adam. Do you have a process for finding reviewers?
I don't look for reviewers at all. I've never found that I sold 700 copies of of a book without having any reviews at all. So I don't think that having reviews has any bearing on. And maybe if you're a debut author and you have, I don't even know with that, because when I first put out Cursebreaker Enchanted, I had no reviewers, I had no reviews, I knew nobody. And I was able to sell the book with 0 reviews. It didn't actually have any reviews until a month after it was out. So, and those were written by people who had actually bought it. So,
Yeah, I definitely plan on asking my beta readers to put something up once the book releases. ARC readers put something up when the book releases, so there's something there. But beyond that, I assume that I'm going to be getting reviews from people who buy the books and read them. And I don't know about looking for them, but yeah, it's interesting. It's a good question. What was your biggest challenge as a writer, and how did you defeat it?
Biggest challenge? Oh, well, they went completely off script and got into a serious problem where if I didn't find a way to save them, the series would have ended.
They were all going to die.
Defeat, because the way that they went radically changed the stakes. It ended up being a much better book, but it left me in a really difficult place because I did not want the Cursebreaker series. I did not want Sarn to die. He was not supposed to die there. It was changing the book into like a George R. Martin type thing. So I had to find a way to save them without doing that God in the Machine thing or breaking the lore, or I had to find a plausible way to save them and have it be a really good story with that, and have it not be, oh, the author is just trying to save them. It had to be to the point where like you as a reader had no idea that I didn't know how to save them, that they came that close to be complete destruction.
Yeah.
So, and I found the answer in book 2, but that was really difficult. And they keep doing this to me because they keep destroying all of my outlines and going completely off script. And every book now I'm having to like pull them out of like danger.
Well,
and that is really hard to do consistently without breaking lore, doing the God in the Machine, or any of the other things that readers absolutely hate.
Yeah.
So,
well, it sounds like it just makes for really great drama. You're reminding me of the writer's room for the show Breaking Bad. I don't know if you were a fan, but I idolize the writing team on that show. And one of the things that they talk about all the time is that they would purposefully write themselves into a corner that seems impossible to get out. And they'll spend however long it took to figure out how to get them out of that. In one instance, their famous example is there's a scene where our two, very criminal heroes are trapped in an RV, and the cop that's been chasing them has blocked them in with his car, and he's trying to get in. He's trying to get into the RV, and what do? And of course, our hero of the story, within a couple of minutes, thinks something up and gets out of it. But it took them 2 weeks to figure out how to get them out of that. All the ideas that the other character rattles off and the first one shoots down like, no, that's stupid, that's not going to work. Those were the writers in the writer's room, like throwing out ideas.
They
like,
had
nope, that's not going to work.
people to bounce ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're an author, it's just you, and you're like, all right, characters,
yeah,
how do we get you out of this?
Yeah, you and the voices in your head.
Yeah,
and
they're
so that's
staring
the thing.
at you like, well, I don't know, that was you. You need to save us. You're the
You're
author.
the writer.
That's your job.
Yeah.
That's your job. Not to market
Yeah.
books. It's your job to save us when we do something dumb.
That's so funny. Well, and it's great because however long it took you as the writer to figure out how to get
1
them
year.
out of that, wow. Once you finally write it, it makes it look like your characters are geniuses because they figured it out, on the page, and nobody knows that it took you a year to figure that out.
Well, I did mention, the characters did complain about it in the newsletter, like, that. So like subscribers were aware that this was sort of going on, and I think it made it a much better book. And that the book where I had to save them was Cursebreaker Hidden. It took me a whole year to find the answer, but once we found it, it was like, okay, I can breathe now.
Yeah, the world, it will be all right again.
And it turned into a really amazing book. It gets sort of to, if it were a movie, it would be like on par with maybe Return of the King, we didn't return any kings, but it was that level of like magic and drama and action.
Yeah, just everything but the kitchen sink kind of stuff.
I think I actually did have the kitchen sink. I mean,
Fantastic.
I had dragons. We had there
You
was
gotta go the extra
everything
mile.
in that book. Like we pulled out all the stops.
You remind me a little bit of there's a band called Coheed and Cambria. They're like a metal
Yes.
band.
My sister
But
used to love them.
oh, fantastic. And all of their albums are concept albums. They're all stories. They're all like another book in this like ongoing series, a big sci-fi epic. The third album, they did this thing where they kind of like zoomed out of the story and gave you the perspective of the writer. They made the writer a character.
I
And the
did
writer
that. I have
the
two
writer
books where they come to my apartment through a portal and
oh
like
my god.
and they bring a dragon with them, and like so there's a dragon storming around where I live, and they expect me to save them. Like I don't have any magic.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Write the stories you're in.
It's very similar to what Coheed and Cambria did, because in that one, the characters in the story essentially pray to God, but God is the writer. They're praying to the writer, and the writer is going through like a horrible time in his life. His girlfriend cheated on him, and he's depressed and all this kind of stuff. So he's taking it out on the characters. He's just putting them into horrible situations, and they're like, "Please stop torturing us." And that's kind of what I'm feeling here. That's pretty cool.
I don't
like
torture them. They make their own decisions, and then I get stuck having to deal with the fallout. But yeah, I do have two books. It's called Cursebreaker's Companion, the series, and it's written from the perspective of Sarn's son, and they come through a portal to my apartment. I get kidnapped. They have to find their scribe, otherwise their story's never going to get finished.
That's awesome.
It's meant to poke even more fun at the world that I created. It's
R.C. Scott says that he'll market to anyone. They came for the romance, but stayed for the blood.
Hey, if it works for you, do it.
Hey, man, that's what I say. All right. Next question is, do you listen to music while writing? And if so,
Yes.
lyrics or no lyrics?
I listen to soundtracks from movies.
Same.
Yeah, mostly like The Lord of the Rings. The what's
Something
that one?
genre adjacent, right? Something
lot of-
yeah.
What's his name? Well, not all fantasy stuff, because I can't think of the composer's name, but there's a few composers who compose for like action movies and stuff that have really amazing scores.
Hans Zimmer.
Yes.
I use like
Yes.
almost all his scores. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Last Samurai is like one of my favorites. It's fantastic.
Yes, mine too. Especially for writing. Some epic. You want like sweeping music with different emotions and things.
And it goes up and down. It takes you down
Yes.
into these valleys where like you lull.
It just encourages the characters to go further off script, but who cares about that? It ends up being a better book, so it's all right.
On that topic, this question here is: have two characters gotten together that you did not plan for? I'm sure they did by the sound of it.
No, actually.
No. Oh. Maybe
No,
something for the future.
I have not had two characters get together that I have not planned. I have not planned for any romances. I mean, don't give them ideas. Please don't give them ideas.
They'll hear you.
I don't know how to write a romance, and I don't really plan on learning. So please don't give them ideas. But no, I don't have any characters that have gotten together. The main Sarn, the main character of the Cursebreaker series, is a single father. He's sort of got a 4-year-old son who's very precocious and sticks to him like glue. And I didn't mention this, but also part of the promise to the Cursebreaker series is that he can't leave his son and go off on an adventure, so he's stuck taking the boy with him. Otherwise, the boy will die, because the boy doesn't have access to the magic, but he needs the magic because he's the son of a mage. He won't have his own access or connection to the magic until he's 7 years old. So until he's 7 years old, Sarn has kind of got a childcare issue. So in all the books, he's attempting to battle the monsters and do the things with his 4-year-old son by his side.
My father's here to gush for some
Aw.
reason. Hi, Dad.
He's here to help
That's
you
awesome.
adventure.
Maybe. Do I want to steer readers towards Amazon or Goodreads for reviews? Not sure how that works.
Amazon. You want to
Amazon.
steer them to leave the reviews where people are going to see them to buy the books. Goodreads is a place where readers go to talk about books, to they do write reviews on there, but they're really there to talk to other readers, and people don't go to Goodreads and then go to Amazon to buy books. They don't.
Makes sense.
It's,
Yeah, they're shopping on Amazon. That's where you
yes,
want the
they
review.
go leave the review on Goodreads after they read the book that they bought on Amazon. So I would encourage people to leave it on Amazon, not on Goodreads. And they also like rate books higher on Amazon. Like on Goodreads, a lot of people will 1-star your book, not because it was bad, just because that's how they handle their TBR list. It just means that they're going to read your book, or they have your book and they just haven't gotten to it yet. So, and reviews are much harsher on Goodreads because it's more for the readers to, it's more of a place for readers. Authors really don't belong in Goodreads.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So be careful when you're there. Just understand it's a reader space and just take everything with a giant grain of salt.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely don't want to muddy the waters, so to speak, with your author stuff on there.
Yeah.
Yes, readers have a different rating system on Goodreads. Interesting.
Yes, I've heard about 5 different versions of it. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to just stay out of Goodreads. That's just not a place for me.
All right. They're just talking to my dad now. I've lost them completely. Thanks, Dad. They're just talking to him
tiny
now.
Object in the room.
Yeah, I guess. All right. So that has been our live chat Q&A. Thank you so very much, everybody in the chat, for your questions. That was fantastic. If you have any last minute ones before we wrap up, throw them in there now, and I'll be sure to ask real quick before we go. Ms. Kucsera, was there anything in particular that you wanted to cover on today's show that we maybe haven't gotten to?
I did want to just make a note that Curse Breaker Enchanted, there we are. It's free, both the ebook, and if you go on Google Play or Kobo or to my website, you can get the AI narrated audiobook for free, or you can listen to the AI narrated audiobook, the complete one. It's in 2 YouTube videos on YouTube, and I am also narrating it, the human, on my YouTube channel and also on this podcast that I'm trying to do.
I saw that too. Yes, I almost forgot to ask you about that. All right, so that's cool. So that's mostly going to be audiobook readings. Awesome.
Well, I wanted to also talk about fantasy things. I would love to get a lore master on there and have, a Lord of the Rings chat. I posted something on social media the other day about basically about like sort of like a what if scenario, like what if the Rings of Power had done things a little bit differently and how that would have changed things and how they could have stuck with the lore. There was a lot of interest in that. So now I'm like, okay, maybe I'm going to have to find a lore master and actually do this. It's something that I'm considering. But I do want to do more than just audiobook readings. That's all I have. That's one of the things that I am doing on there, but I would like to do other things. I have to figure out what those other things are and find people to do them with.
Any advice for first-time writers that people don't really talk too much about?
Yes, you can publish your first book entirely for free. You do not have to pay a cent for anything. And what you can do is and how that works, there's different ways you can self-publish. You can go the route where you pay top dollar for everything and hope that you get that you earn everything back, or if in the reason I was in where you did not have it's either do things for the book or buy groceries where you cannot spend a cent on anything because you're deep in debt for whatever reason. You could actually self-publish entirely for free. You can make your own cover, and then as it sells, you can then upgrade it to that's what I did. In 2016, I did not have any money to pay for anything. I shopped around for editors. It's 160,000 words, the book, 160 something thousand. So the quotes that I got back were astronomical. And I looked at them and I looked at my paycheck of what was left over from bills and groceries. And there was definitely not that kind of money in there. Yeah. So there's all different ways to self-publish, and you don't let anyone tell you that you have to pay top dollar for everything, because that is not true. You can get a cover from Fiverr. You can do the cover yourself. You can upgrade as you earn. It's a viable path for self-publishing. And if you take that path, make sure to start your newsletter immediately or your social presence and make that part of your platform so that those early fans that you get are part of that journey. And that will bind them to you and get them invested in your success. And that will help you grow.
That's invaluable advice, and the newsletter as well is
Yeah.
entirely invaluable.
I can
It's
go deeper on that if we ever want to do sort of a show, because I sort of, that was my path. So I'm very knowledgeable about that, how to spend nothing and get your book out there and grow.
well, luckily for everybody else, you and I are going to go on to record the Typewriters podcast episode after this. So they'll be able to hear all about that a little more in depth on Thursday, because we're going to talk about that.
Oh,
Because I too am putting out a $166,000 word book, and editing is expensive. So I also found other ways to do that.
there's a lot of different, like, I don't know if you're familiar with the books 20 books to 50K, that Facebook group.
I recently heard about it. Yeah.
Their motto is that there are many ways up the mountain of book selling success, and my way may not be your way, and your way may not be my way, but all the ways are valid as long as they are moving you closer to your goal.
I like it. All right. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll in the chat. Let's share the results on here. Let's see.
Oh, and one more. Knowledge
yes.
is a rising tide, and it lifts all the boats. All of us authors, writers, and you know what? Everybody, if you're writing anything, even if you never intend to publish, you are still a writer. You're still a legitimate author. You don't have to publish something.
Beautiful.
There's all different ways to enjoy writing.
Agreed. Our viewers today, 62% of them follow their authors on YouTube, 25% on Instagram, 12% on TikTok, and everyone hates Twitter, which I'm very, very happy about. So, I might be on the right platform. I don't know. Then again, I am on YouTube right now, so they're probably a little biased.
That's true. That's true.
All right. Well, Ms. Kucsera, this has been fantastic. It has been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for joining me today. To everybody at home, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That's going to help us with all of the what's it called? The algorithm. It's going to help us with the algorithm. We're going to say goodbye to Ms. Kucsera for now, but as I reminded you earlier, we are going to have the Typewriters podcast episode up on Thursday. It will be a premiere, so there will be a live chat while it's premiering, and unless I'm in the hospital or something, I'll be in there. So if you guys have any questions while you watch, talk to me in there. Ms. Kucsera, you are by no means obligated to be there for that, but if by any means you are available, just hop on into the chat and say hi to everybody.
I'll try. I work from home on Thursdays, so I might be able to.
Nice. Awesome. Reminder to everybody, Tuber Book Club, October 25th. It was originally going to be this Tuesday. It is now next Tuesday, but we'll be reading and discussing the first half of the McMurdo Rift by Martin Lejeune and Malcolm Bradley. I almost forgot his name. Good God, that would have been awful. Next Sunday, we have Jack Adkins. I can't talk today. The Dragons of Dorwyn series is his series, and I can't wait to talk to him about that, because more dragons. Who doesn't love dragons? Yeah,
he's really great too. He's a really great guy.
Good to hear. I'm into it. All right. For everybody, thank you again. Bye, Shannon. Bye, Adam. Bye, everybody else. Thank you so much for being here. And we will catch you guys next Sunday for the next one. Right on, writers. We are out.